references. So there are 4 questions we're going to answer. The first is, will they be checked? Will someone actually be contacting my references? The second, how many references should I have? The third question I get is, who should I select? And last but not least, what should they say about me? I'm also going to approach 2 questions I get most often when it comes to references. The first question I often get is, how do I approach or talk to people that I have not kept in touch with who I'd like to be my reference? And the second I get is, what if my name has changed or if they don't remember me? So we're going to cover those 2 frequently asked questions as well. So let's dive in. The first question is, will they be checked? Well, you may have heard when you're applying for summer employment or maybe casual employment that your references were not checked. But for a career type interview or job, yes, assume that all references that you provided will in fact be contacted. We've touched upon earlier this semester how expensive it is to hire and recruit and train someone. So they're going to want to make sure that you are a hit, a sure bet for them. And the best way to do that is to talk to people who already have worked with you or know you. Be sure you've asked the person or people for approval to submit their name as a reference. You just read about the cautionary tale of a supervisor who gave a bad reference for someone. That's entirely possible to do if you put their name forward without speaking to them first. So make sure you've reached out to them and guided the way for them to provide information as a possible employment reference. You also need to be sure that on your reference sheet that you're going to be providing to them, that you indicate how you know the person. So for instance, are they a former supervisor, a professor of yours, a volunteer coordinator, etc., etc. You want to make it as easy as possible for the person who's doing the reference checking. So when they call the person, they say, for example, "Hi, I see, John Smith, that you're a former supervisor of Lara Lowe's. I'd like to ask you a few questions about her." I'm going to show you an example at the end of this lesson as to how you lay this out on your references page. The next question, how many should I have? Well, you need to provide 3 references with any employment, but 5 is even better to have. Professional references are most important. Personal references are less relevant, but you may have some if you don't have the 3 to 5 professional references. And we'll talk about these different categories in a second. So why do you think I suggest that you have 5 references if you only have to provide 3? Well, the answer to that is that you need to have 2 what I would call in your back pocket. You don't want to use the same 3 references over and over again. Or if one of your 3 references is going out of town for the summer or they're away for a period of time, you want to have 2 other references that you could reach out to perhaps substitute in on your references page. So let's talk about the different categories of references. Who should you be selecting? Well, the gold star for references, the number 1 thing that they'd like to speak to, are previous employers or previous supervisors. But also in that gold star category are things like professionals. So professional people or community organizers, people that you have worked with but perhaps not reported to directly. Also academic. Professors and former teachers are considered gold star. Again, it's better to use professors or former teachers who had you for multiple subjects because then they've seen you working with multiple groups of people. Then the next category, the not so quite gold star, but if you don't have all gold star, the personal references. These are people who have known you for a very long period of time, a minimum of a few years. I'm going to caution you here to never, ever, 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 never, ever, ever use immediate family members. Even if they have a different last name than you, even if you think that they'll never be found out, it will destroy your credibility to use an immediate family member because immediate family members will not be unbiased when they provide your reference. You want to always select people who are articulate and are easy to be contacted. So people who speak well about you and they're easy to be reached, so either via email or by telephone. All right, now let's tackle what should they say about me. Well, they're going to be asked how long they know you, so from where and for how long, the duties or responsibilities that you handled that they were able to observe. They're going to be asked questions about your strengths and your weaknesses, the quality of your work, things like your attendance, your punctuality, how well you participate, how well you work in teams, your overall attitude, your motivation levels, and your communication skills. They'll definitely get a question about how you manage stress and your overall interpersonal skills. That leads back to that positive attitude we talked about a few weeks ago. The final question they're going to get asked is, would you rehire them if you could? And this is a big one. If they answer no to this question for any reason, then you've just lost that job. So you want to make sure they're going to answer yes. So what do you do then if you know that they're going to be asked all these questions? This is where your job working with your references comes in. You need to have a conversation with everyone that you're talking to about being a reference and remind them, first of all, of how they know you. So for instance, if I had a coach from Little League that I think would be a great reference for me because they're also a community leader and they've actually known me for a long period of time, I would start the conversation with, "Hi, remember that I used to play for you on Little League and then I also volunteered for you as part of the school program?" Just to remind them for how long they've known you. I would also remind them of some of the duties and responsibilities. So I'd say, remember when I volunteered for you, that I was able to work as part of teams and meet deadlines, and I was able to handle money and resolve cash situations. I would definitely tell them about your strengths and weaknesses if they don't know them already. You want to coach your reference so that they're speaking about the strengths and weaknesses that you want them to talk about. So do it in a way that lets them know that you're working on your weaknesses. For instance, you probably remember when I was on your Little League team and I volunteered with you that one of my strengths was teamwork. But one of the weaknesses that I've always struggled with is time management. And I want you to know that I've been working through that weakness over the last few years by taking different seminars and working through different techniques to manage my time. And although it's still a weakness, it's definitely improved. Then walk them through the things like your attendance and punctuality, your teamwork, attitude, and motivation. Ask them if they have any concerns for any of these areas, because let them know these are questions that they're going to be asked. Also, ask them what their opinion is of how you manage your stress and your overall interpersonal skills. If the answers that you get here are somewhat weak or you're not feeling confident about them, you may not want to use this person as a reference. Remember, you should be hearing great news at every one of these questions you're asking them. Last but not least, ask them the question, would you rehire me if you could? And wait to hear their answer. Kind of like going on a date with someone. You want to make sure that you get a positive affirmative, yes, absolutely here. If there's a lot of hesitation or ums and ahs, or they're not sure, again, you may want to move on and choose someone who's going to speak more highly of you than the person you're talking to right now. So here's how we lay out our references. At the top of your reference page, you have your name and all of your information the same way it's laid out on your resume. So on your resume page 1, you've got your name hopefully in bold, then your information about your contact information, and then you lay out the 3 different references. So for instance, John Doe, former supervisor at Target Canada, with a telephone number and an email address. Will Smith, former manager at ABC Moving Company, with just a telephone number. And Sally Smith, volunteer coordinator at Golden Rescue, with an email address. Ask your references how they want to be contacted, and this is the information you're listing here. Remember, you don't send in your references with your resume, you hold on to these, and you take these with you to the interview. Because at the interview, you know it's going well if they ask to see a copy of your references. You know it's not going well if you offer to provide your references and they say, no, thank you. I hope that helps. Make sure you reach out if you have any questions about who you should ask or how to have that conversation.